A World Peace Guide. Chapter 1. There has got to be a better way for humans to live. Travis Walton was rescued by extraterrestrials from somewhere else. Travis Walton had done a day's work thinning trees in the hills of Arizona in November, 1975. He was in a truck with 6 other guys. They came around a turn and saw a spaceship. Travis, then 23, got out of the truck, walked toward the spaceship, whereupon the force field around it knocked him back and rendered him unconscious. The ETS did not shoot a weapon at him. He got knocked back by the power system of the spaceship. The guys in the truck took off. The ETS picked up the unconscious Travis Walton and brought him on their ship. He woke up later to see several short extraterrestrials examining him. He jumped up, grabbed something off a table and brandished it in an aggressive way, whereupon the ETS left the room. Travis left too and walked the other way into another room. Several minutes later, he saw a guy outside the room wearing a helmet who looked human. He followed this guy out of the spaceship into some bay that could have been a warehouse or a mother ship. He followed into a room where there were about 6 human-looking beings there who grabbed him and threw a mask over his face, which rendered him unconscious until he woke up 5 days later at night on a road near where he was picked up. My point is that extraterrestrials are here on planet Earth. I wonder what kind of life system or government they have on their planet. It can't be as stupid as ours with our kings, governments, taxes, and banks. We the human race can do much better than what we're doing now. The problem is that a handful of people control most of the money and power. They have no love, care, or compassion for the masses. They want as much power and money for themselves so they can keep the masses scared, brainwashed, and as far away from them as possible. That's the problem: greed over need. The current representative democracies are fake democracies run like professional wrestling, a show for the masses, while a group of elitists run everything. The banking system lets private central banks and commercial banks create money out of thin air to make loans through a process called fractional reserve banking. The private central banks create money out of nothing and lend it to governments, expecting this money back at compound interest, which is why we have income tax, which is modern-day slavery. That's all it is with this stupid one-dimensional scheme. They've brainwashed us with that the government has to get money from the citizens to pay back the money it borrows. It has borrowed this money from a privately owned central bank which didn't work for it. They created it out of nothing. They get this money back from the government, who got it from the people through taxes. The people sweated for this money, paid it as taxes, and the rich elitists who run the central bank get to keep it all with fantastic wealth, much more than we can imagine. Almost nobody understands that we live in a fraudulent system where a few bankers have rigged it to collect large amounts of money from all the people for doing almost nothing except pretending that they are wise managers of a nation's money supply. They pretend it's really complicated, and they are working hard to keep the economy stable by manipulating interest rates and playing with computers. This is the fight for peace and freedom. What is world peace? Is everybody greedy, dishonest, and secretly evil with a charming front, or are we like that because we've been brought up to base everything on money? There are other ways to live. If nations are supposedly sovereign and have the power to create their money, not borrow it from private bankers who create it out of nothing through a fraud called fractional reserve banking like they do now, the government could give everyone a guaranteed income of $1,000 a month, which is enough for everyone to live on in modest comfort. We're all stuck in the same life on this planet. If we destroy nature, everyone suffers. If we want world peace, we have to give everyone equal rights, treat everyone righteously, and give everyone enough to live on. It's okay to work to get more wealth to better your lot on life, but it's not okay to wallow in material excess while others suffer, starve, and are homeless, but we do it all the time and call it success. We can't fight violence with violence. If we want peace, we have to be peaceful. We have to get rid of the military, the CIA, the NSA, and most of that other phony macho garbage that makes us look like a police state. If we want peace, we have to leave people alone to be free as long as they don't bother anyone else. I can watch cops on TV on any given night and watch them hassle people who want to get high. It's wrong. It creates an oppressive atmosphere. I can watch them border security shows that are now cancelled but are probably still on YouTube, where they hassle people for meaningless things, pretending they are protecting an imaginary line called a border. Travelers have no use for those customs clerks. We have to get rid of all this stuff if we want world peace. We have to get rid of all those war monuments everywhere that pretend to make war cool and acceptable. The aims of world peace are to provide a reasonable standard of living for everybody. Share the Earth's bounty with everyone. Get rid of military equipment companies, tell them to produce useful gadgets. Eliminate all weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, biological, and chemical. Stop the sale for export of conventional weapons. Stop military forces from going beyond their own borders. Stop military propaganda. Get rid of all the military and security agencies in every country. Give everyone human rights. Stop glorifying war in movies, TV, etc. Get rid of all war monuments and war museums. Stop having military remembrance and other military-type celebrations. Stop making it seem like war is heroic. Get rid of military video games. Get rid of military toys. Stop all patriotic BS. Get rid of all military uniforms. Get rid of the culture that the military is a good career and that military personnel are good. They're not. Most are just average wage slaves, but some are macho assholes. Get rid of the idea that military service is heroic. Get rid of the paranoia, like I heard very recently on the radio, where some military guys were warning us that the Russians are rearming. So what if the Russians are rearming? It's probably a lie, but if it's true, let them waste their money. We got more important business like helping our people get good homes and decent lives. The Russians or the Chinese are never going to come to the US or Canada and invade. Invade what? A bunch of belligerent, fat-ass, lazy people more worried about entertainment and junk food than anything else. They could never control us. What possible benefit could it ever be to invade a nation of arrogant, independent rednecks when you can't even take care of your own people? It's all silly Western propaganda hatched by the guys who run the military companies like BlackRock and Raytheon. The war mentality is a big con job perpetrated by money-hungry capitalists who want to make money off wars. That's it. There is no national security issue. The only terrorists we get are the ones we create when we go to foreign lands to bomb innocent strangers, then rape, pillage and torture their people. Why is it that no terrorists are scrambling to get at Costa Rica, Argentina, Mexico, Jamaica, etc.? It's because these countries don't go to other countries with guns and bombs. Then we got politicians saying they're going to strengthen the military because they think it makes them look tough, but they're too stupid to realize that you create peace by not being a bully. I recently heard them say that the Canadian military is honoring its NATO commitment by sending troops to the Indian Ocean. What business does Canada have sending military troops anywhere? Canada has never been attacked. It should not have a military force at all. It could be a beacon as the most progressive nation in the world, but instead we're like the gung-ho Western nations. We can't seem to get fighting out of our blood. We're supposed to be Christians. How much blood is there on the Holy See, the Roman Catholic Church? That's how they used to get people to fight. Mix patriotism with religion, then if you went against them they called you a heretic and burned you at the stake. End this idea that a military person in uniform is cool and good. They're wasting our money and resources while doing nothing productive for society. They're taking money away from education, hospitals, infrastructure, food, etc. Americans don't have universal health care. Lots of Americans cannot afford basic medical care while your government spends half of all its money on the military. The 1998 movie Saving Private Ryan got a 4-star rating, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring a big movie star at the time, Tom Hanks. It was a phony story about some American soldiers trying to save their buddy on the D-Day invasion of Normandy, which in real life was the stupidest thing any general could do. I believe it was Dwight D. Eisenhower who made the decision as the Supreme Allied Commander to attack the Germans at their strongest point, thus creating a bloodbath and a loss of 10,000 troops for that 1 or 2 days. Of course his ass was never in danger. It made for glorious propaganda, bravely charging the enemy at the beach, but don't say that to the dead guys buried there now. They were brainwashed plebeians being used for the glory of the military elite. The film Saving Private Ryan earned $500 million and got 11 Academy Award nominations. How does the peace movement fight that, when they come out with crap like that as entertainment and portray it as heroic, macho, apple pie and Americana? This is what we're fighting, this big lie that the military is cool. It's not cool for all the dead young guys in graves for nothing but someone else's ego and wallet. I was brought up on Fuller Terrace in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, about 3 blocks from the entrance to Canadian Forces Base Halifax and about 3 blocks from a homeless shelter. Even as a kid, I used to ask myself, why do they have this big military force in a time of supposed peace while there were desperate, downtrodden guys hanging around in front at the homeless shelter? My uncle Chris lived in Eastern Passage right beside a private 18-hole golf course called Heartlands Point owned by the Canadian military. They had their own private golf course paid for by the taxpayers. Nothing has changed. When I go over the bridge and see those military ships below, I think what a colossal waste of money and energy that we could have used to build houses, schools, and hospitals. People are afraid to criticize the military because they bring jobs to the area, even though they're all useless jobs that add nothing to the progress of humanity. The military are a bunch of people doing nothing. Everybody else has to produce results. These people just suck up money with no accountability to anyone. They just holler national security. Politicians don't have the guts to fight them because the military represents votes. If you live in a town like I do where the military adds about 15,000 jobs to the economy, it's hard to criticize them. I remember a journalist once asked a military guy on TV something like, "Isn't it a big waste of money? Why can't we use that money on social programs to help people?" She didn't stay in that job for long. Nobody ever says you guys are wasting all that taxpayer money doing nothing productive. Canada doesn't need a military. We've never been attacked. Who would want to attack us, this big cold wasteland? I remember driving through the Norfolk Newport News area of Virginia as a young guy. The United States Navy pumps a lot of money into that economy. The people don't care. They just want money. They would have to be shown that we can replace swords with plowshares. It's so hard to promote peace because the military creates lots of jobs, but the fact is that they are meaningless jobs. If we could take that energy and use it to build houses, schools, factories, etc., we would have a better society, but the people are scared of losing their jobs. That's why they support the military in all local areas where the military spends lots of money. That's the fight. It's about good jobs and a good economy. If we could do that while eliminating the military, the people would be for it. We have to provide everybody with either a decent job or a guaranteed monthly income. I don't like the atmosphere of glorifying war with all the war monuments and the ceremonies. The military uniforms, the marching bands and all that stuff never impressed me. I thought it was a scam. I don't like the guys walking around in uniform pretending they're doing something honorable to keep our countries democratic and free. I think they're there for the easy work and the benefits, pretending they're noble warriors. I used to sit in my bed at night and watch those military helicopters fly around, and I'd ask myself, what are they doing 10 o'clock at night during a time of peace? They were always there, flying around. An enlightened human race doesn't need any of it. Create a peaceful world. The problem is that we live in a world where the system is about making money to survive and thrive. It's everyone for themselves. TV advertises all kinds of fantasies available only to people with money. People without money get jealous. Some get depressed and kill themselves. Some get angry and commit violent crimes to get money. The real thieves are the bankers who run the monetary system. An enlightened race, species, or being would give everybody the means for a modestly comfortable life no matter what, and among the people, whoever wanted to go further and work or create things for the greater good would receive additional funding and benefits. We live in a capitalist world where evil people are out to get what they can for themselves and screw everyone else in the process if they have to. Go to the business websites like Forbes, Business Insider, or Bloomberg to see the massive brainwashing to get everybody jealous of rich people and hooked onto trying to get as much money as they can. They worship money and materialism. This is the ideology they're pushing through the mainstream media. This is why we're screwed. Everybody is trying to make more money by any means possible to get more stuff because it's touted as the way to be happy and free. No one ever talks about minimalism or about do what you want all the time. It doesn't cost much because the greatest joys come from living by your free spirit. End war and create peace and prosperity for all. In the fight for rights, equality, and justice, most fights can be broken down into a fight by a specific group, location, or event like the following. Geographic location, locals want their rights. People want either new leader or a new form of government. Most fights are by oppressed people like indigenous, native people, minorities, students, women, working people looking for a better wage, exploited people like people whose lands were poisoned as in factory pig farms spoiling the water through the sewage, disabled veterans. All fights come down to the same thing. We live in a matrix controlled by a monetary system controlled by a few bankers. Politicians are mostly low-level puppets. In every government, there are rogue agencies that do what they want thinking they are dictators. This has to be broken if we want world peace and prosperity. Create the People Power Program aka True Democracy, online voting on all big issues. Unite. Demand a referendum to change the government from the phony representative governments that now rule us to a new form of government where the people rule issue by issue through online voting. I call this system either the People Power Program or True Democracy. If the government doesn't create this referendum, we surround the main government building, take over the government by virtue of the number of people right there united together and set up the referendum ourselves. We run the referendum. If it passes, we move to a new form of government where the people create and vote on all the new ideas from now on. This is how we get rid of the military and banking forces that run the world right now. We replace representative democracies with true democracies where the people rule by creating ideas and voting on them online. We vote the military away and use that energy and money on projects to help the people. The government takes control of the money. In a sovereign nation, the government has the right to create its own money. We won't borrow it anymore from those crooked bankers who created the scheme where the government borrows its money from private banks, either a privately run central bank or private chartered banks. The national government of every nation will create its own chartered bank and offer better interest rates on savings and lower interest rates on loans than the existing banks with the express intent of setting up branches everywhere until we put all private banks out of business. This has to be done because banks have an unfair advantage over everyone else. Through their scheme called fractional reserve banking, private banks create money out of nothing every time they create a loan for anything, be it a car loan, a mortgage, a home equity loan, a business loan, a loan to the government. Every time any bank makes a loan, the cost to them is the paper for the bond or contract, the labor to write it up and the electricity to put the credit into the computer. The face value of the loan is pure 100% profit plus they want compound interest on top of it. The people altogether should get the benefits of fractional reserve banking, not a few elitist bankers who get filthy rich then have the arrogance and the power to do whatever they want. Peace activist movements are not enough to stop the military money machine. Peace movements have come nowhere close to making a dent in the biggest industry in the world, the war industry. In every country a few bankers and manufacturers make a lot of money from the business of war. Smedley Butler was an American general who wrote a book called War is a Racket, explaining how he was used by the military to make a few businessmen rich. The human race can live in peace and prosperity, but they don't because the few global elitists control the media, therefore knowledge, so they have us living in a pro-war matrix where the average person is massively brainwashed by this way of life. How are you going to get a populace to end its warring ways in a society that demands patriotism where it's tied in with being pro-military? They play the national anthem at all big sports events. They tell us to support our mangled vets. It's a clever ploy to parade these vets on TV and demand sympathy when the truth is that these people were naive pawns who bought into the propaganda, got injured and are now exploited to keep the war mentality going. I believe the only great countries are the ones who get over the manufactured fear and use their money to help people. A nation with industries of guns, bombs, and tanks is producing negative energy for the planet. They tell us to be constantly vigilant about some phony threat of hordes crossing the border like a pack of wild Huns. It's not going to happen in the United States or Canada because we're both cold countries full of rednecks who bow down to nobody. Our countries are so big. The people are so lazy and rude. You could never conquer us. They would be useless to any tyrant. It's about using our energy to help people live better lives rather than building guns, bombs, planes, uniforms, bullets, etc. We could easily eliminate poverty and homelessness if we eliminate war. There is a great article on peace movements at wikipedia.org. The Venus Project by Jacques Fresco. Jacques Fresco lived through the 1930s depression in the United States. He couldn't understand why there was so much poverty and unemployment when people were willing to work. He became a technician, engineer, and inventor. Later in life, he conceived an idea that we could build cities where technology does most of the work and leaves people free to be creative and live good lives. His ideas are utopian, but that's only because we're stuck in a world paradigm of money and capitalism. We have the intelligence and the power to build great societies where everyone is taken care of, but we don't do it because the world is based on a few elitists controlling all the money, keeping everybody else down. I saw some of his lectures on YouTube. Most people can't imagine living in a city where technology does almost all the work and we're free to think up better ideas on how to live. They ask him some hard questions and kind of dismiss him as an unrealistic dreamer, but I believe, like him, that the human race can live in a state of being where we set up the means to take care of everybody and everyone has the freedom to either live freely or work a job if they want to make more money than they need so they can buy more stuff. If you want a peaceful human race, the first thing you have to do is to give everyone a modest house and modest regular paychecks so they can buy food and a few other things. The planet Earth combined with our intelligence can give us this state of being for the human race, but we're way too stupid for this to happen in the near future because of simple greed. Most people want to get as much money as they can and that's all they care about, particularly our politicians. We have to change our governments from phony representative democracies to online democracies where the people rule themselves online. Politicians as a group are some of the most evil people in the human race. They don't deserve the salaries they vote themselves, but the people are too stupid and scared to do anything about it. TheVenusProject.com en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Jacques_Fresco youtube.com/user/Jacques Fresco JacquesFresco.net TheVenusProject.wikia.com/wiki/Jacques_Fresco TheVenusProject.com